Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Balanced Boss Mom podcast, where the space for ambitious mamas come to find encouragement, inspiration, and the real talk about what is actually meaning to build a business and raise family at the same time. I'm your host, Erika, and today's conversation is going to be like a cozy coffee date with your friend who just gets in. We're talking about something that every mompreneur wrestles with. It's called creating harmony in your schedule. Not perfection, not worthy color coded calendars like Pinterest that's never been followed, but real flexible, life giving harmony that works with your family and your business. I want to welcome Amy.
Hello, Erica. I'm so glad to be here with you. I'm so glad to be able to share just a little bit more about harmony and balance. Don't we need it?
Yes, we do need it for sure. And I'm so excited. So excited. I don't know why my words are getting jumbled. So excited for you to be here and get into all the juicy details and strategies and the encouragement that we need. So, while everyone is listening to this podcast, can you share a little bit about your family, what kind of business you run, and what does a typical day in your world look like right now?
Yes. So my family consists of me, my husband, my little boy. My little guy is 2 years old. So I am newly in the trenches. I know, such a good age. But I'm newly in the trenches of figuring out, work life as a mother myself. My
Mhm.
background was in HR where I supported a lot of people, going out on their leaves, figuring out newly for themselves what
Mhm.
like how to design balance, how to create that structure that they need to be able to do it and do it well.
Mhm.
um, and then I became a business coach, and so that leads me to my current business is Harmonious Parents, where I
Ooh.
really just want to support, harmonious parents. I really just am focused on supporting parents and working professionals as they navigate figuring out the ever evolving demands on our time, on how we show up, and being present and focused for ourselves and what we're creating in our businesses and our work life, but
Mhm.
also for our families in a way that's just less ridden with stress and guilt.
I like that. And you said you have a two-year old, right?
I have a 2 year old. Yeah. So even though I've been in the space of helping and supporting others for
Mhm.
over a decade, I'm now newly like really figuring out for myself how to redesign my life and my time to support me in this chapter.
It's a fun chapter. I would have to say the terrible twos do come. Yes, yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I would say is just to be patient with the
Mm-hmm.
terrible twos, because then they become three agers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and now you have a 7-year-old like me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
Before you know
each
it.
chapter, before you know it, it goes so fast. I remember talking about how I wish she would talk and walk, and now she can't stop talking and walking. She's like a
Yes.
little mini me all over again. And so
Yes. I see it with
I
my nieces and my nephew. They're just so much fervor, so much personality, and so quickly.
isn't it so it's like a blink of an eye. You say one thing and all of a sudden you're just like they're 18,
Yeah, just
and I
like
have
that.
some of my friends are going through that right now where they're like, God, it's been a blink of an eye, they're in high school. Like, I remember them as babies, and I'm like, now I
Yeah,
see them and they're in high school, so it's pretty
yeah,
cool. So
it is.
what inspires you to start your business in the first place?
My business was an evolution, truly. So, to be honest, I don't know that I ever fully thought that I would commit to it in this way. And it's a good
Mm-hmm.
question because early days when we're deciding what to do and what we're going to be like, you can't know without kind of having some context, right? Like you
Right.
can't know unless you're that person who like knows from a young age I'm doing this, and that just wasn't me.
Mm.
So I ended up in HR. Like I did study organizational behavior, and I was always interested in how people think and supporting people, really helping people. Um, but I think when I understood the context of corporate and what it looked like, I I had some unexpected things with HR too, even though I loved supporting people and was always an
Mm-hmm.
HR person people felt comfortable coming to.
Mm-hmm.
I also was in the middle representing the best interests of the organization and keeping that in
Right.
mind
You
and
had to keep that
also
intact.
supporting the person.
You had to keep
Exactly.
that in, and I know that's a tough position to be in as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're in the mindset of being an HR representative, so you have to be for the organization, but you have to also be an advocate for what's right. And typically, I
Exactly.
would have to say I have been in a little situation like that myself. We're not going to say, we'll talk about it when I get off here, but anyways,
That was really, yeah, that was the
it
thing that
is.
made it like I want to fully be able to support people because when I was in that position, I saw over time, sometimes someone returns from parental leave and they can't raise their hand for the exciting, challenging work that they're capable of. And over
Mm-hmm.
time, that leads to a pay gap. That can lead to a title
Yeah.
gap. And I wanted to be able to fully be invested in supporting the individual. So that's why I went and became a certified life and leadership coach and fell in love with my coaching program. But to
Mm-hmm.
be able to gain some experience and just like learn more, I did business coaching for my first few years. Over that course of time, learned, wow,
Wow.
when someone is, yeah, showing up for their family more, more optimizing their time, maximizing their efficiency, like, and they're able to be more present at home
Mm-hmm.
and at work, that's what just lit me up. And so that's how my business evolved to, okay, really focus on work life harmony
Mm-hmm.
for those entrepreneurial spirited people.
And I like that because it's like not everybody has that game plan for balancing when they first start it all, especially when
Yes.
you're in a pregnancy mode right now. You have to worry about the first, second, third trimester, and then you can't tell, really, to be honest, you can't even tell your employer like, hey, I'm pregnant, because right now in the time that we're in, 9 times out of 10 you could get fired for that, and it's not fair. So to advocate, I like that you advocated for that, for that individual that's trying to get on that parental leave, because I've done some research. I do believe, like, in overseas, like, they get, like, their healthcare is amazing from what the healthcare is here. They don't have to worry about doctor bills or paid leave. They get that. I think it's like 6 months, 6 to 12 months, I do believe, of like paid leave off or something like that. Um, but has it been more of a learn as you go situation in referencing to having a game plan and balancing that business when you first started?
Well, it's funny, like so much of what you say, like there's so much there. So, like I hope people are, able to advocate for themselves first, and like, if there are being consequences because they're pregnant, pregnancy rights, and I hope that's the case. But finding the right supports to advocate for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then as far as you're right, like the placement of where we are in the world, like grateful for so many things are like benefits that some
Mm-hmm.
other countries don't have. And yet, yes, you're right. So much more support in other countries. So the like optics of just, um, where we stand and like really figuring out what imagining what more is possible, and also like balancing that out with being grateful for so many other things. So there's that. Then to answer your question, um, I think it's similar to what I was saying with how can we know where we're going to end up in our careers and our professions. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing on the parenting side. Like you're right. You're preparing for this new life. This that you're going to be responsible for structuring and supporting, and there's so much there
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, how can you possibly realistically think about like all of these other components of what's ahead? And there's going to be so much evolution over the course of the years. So it's like, you can't realistically know, even if you're like me and you're
Mm-hmm.
the kind of person who wants to have a game plan. And so my answer is just like I had to let go of the ability of like having so much control over things. And that's been a journey of
Mm-hmm.
just knowing, keep a loose plan, keep some loose structure. Of course, you're going to need to structure some things and figuring out what you're
Yeah.
doing and care and all of that, but not winding yourself so tight around it that when those sick days come at you, when the unexpected, loss of care happens, when you get a layoff or have something happen in that realm professionally, like it's not shaking your world to a point that's making it so hard to recover. So just kind of having that loose hold over your your sense of control of things.
No, I agree. I totally agree because like I feel like I'm one of those moms where I'm like, okay, school has started. I need to make sure any emails that I get, I have them in folders or um the calendar. Me and my husband would do like a calendar that would happen to just make sure
Yeah,
all the bills are breaking down. And sometimes that could be overwhelming and
yeah,
stressful.
absolutely.
And I want to get a peek a little bit on how, if I was to see your kitchen table on a Monday morning, what would that look like?
Yeah, talk about that evolution of what else. I definitely feel,
Isn't that a
yeah,
stumble question to put you on?
I welcome it. Because it's true. I think I have had an evolution of being wound too tight and being, oh my gosh, like it has to be. And especially, I think the thing I got into my own head about too is like those early days where if you're fortunate to have family who wants to want you come see the baby and all of that, I kept like getting into my own head of like, oh my gosh, everything needs more guests. Like it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
pretty, it needs to look, a certain way. Um, and just more and more over time, like thinking about systems to set yourself up for future success. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I tell people in their business, but I think in their home life too, really managing things in a way where, hey, is there something we can do to make things easier for our
Mm-hmm.
future self? Little things. Can we, just make sure the dishwasher's empty the night before? Can we even those little gadgets, like I did not think
Mm-hmm.
I would be the person with like the little pre-baby formula like feeder thing. I breastfed for a long time, but when we
Mm-hmm.
transitioned, it's like, what are the little things that really make sense for you and your family life to
Mm-hmm.
buy you a little bit of time back to make things create that ease and flow that's going to alleviate unnecessary stress. And so not being afraid to kind of like lean in to certain things like that
Mm-hmm.
help. So my kitchen counter is cluttered in some sense with those things that make life easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throw everything in a pot like for dinners to make things easier, like things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But there is a sense of tidiness around um, taking the time when I can. So that's actually like what I did this morning, and I've been really protective over in the morning times. If I have 15, if I have 20 minutes while I'm running the coffee pot, while I'm setting up the breakfast and the snacks and little things and taking them out for the day, like
Mm-hmm.
cleaning off and like maximizing those little pockets, which is different than what I did in the past. Like you might not have this huge chunk of time available where you can do the deep everything. So just maximizing time in that way where it's little
Mm-hmm.
pockets of tackling what you can. And I think that applies like across the board to different parts of life.
No, and I totally get it because my Monday morning starts pretty early. I normally started at like 6:30 a little bit.
Mhm.
So, and although she don't go to school till like 8:15, it's kind of like you have to wake them up and say, "Hey, did you stay up all night when I told you to go to bed at 8 o'clock?" Because now you're tired. Now you're like, "Oh, I don't want to go to school." And I'm like, "Nope, gotta get up, get ready, start brushing your teeth, washing your face, and my mornings we do little dance parties to get our days started
Um,
because I'm like, you want to listen to music and get the day started? Yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I try to encourage her to have fun. She loves school. She's like, I can't wait to go to school and meet all my friends. And then she comes home and she tells me
Oh,
everything. And it's such a rewarding feeling,
love that.
when you see your child go to school and she's so excited about school, but she doesn't know the outside world of things of what's happening, because I'm very protective over her. And one of the things I have watched, actually, me and my spouse watched together. It was a show on ABC. I think it's called The Gentle Test. I don't know if you've seen it before. It's a really good show. And so they have each set of different parents. You go from gentle parenting all the way to strict parenting. And so
Oh,
it talks about how when you're the gentle parent, what happens in this situation and how the child is going to react, versus if you're a strict parent, what's going to happen. And
I have
so
seen this. It's like the free range parenting and
the
all the
free
different
range,
styles.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things I did want to talk about, because it's like, you don't know how you're gonna, like you stated, you don't know, just like how when you're a child, you don't know what you're gonna be when you grow up. And so
Mhm.
it was kind of weird, not weird, but kind of interesting seeing that evolution of different parenting, because I was like, wow, there's different terms for different parenting. And then when I saw it and I was like, oh wow, I'm in between like this and this, I was like,
Mhm.
this is interesting. And I wish a lot of people really need to check it out. If you haven't watched it, they have it on YouTube. It's called The Gentle Parenting. It was a show on ABC. I really wish they would bring it back for like a second season and keep doing it with parents so they could see the evolution of um different childhoods and different parenting, because it would give a more of an eye opener to parents of, okay, maybe I am a little bit too gentle, or maybe I am a little too strict. It opened
Yeah.
my eyes for sure. Now, you and I have talked before about how people throw around the phrase work-life balance, and I hear that so much in the job field that I'm in right now, where work life balance, there is none. I'm just going to be completely honest. Work life balance is just a word I feel that they just draw in the employer. To be honest, I'm going to be honest. To draw in the employer so that way they be like, oh, wow, this job does give me work life balance. And then when it clicks to you magically that there is no work life balance, I rather have the word harmony be in place instead of work life balance. So, my question to you is why does the word resonate with you more of harmony rather than a work life balance?
Okay, beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking that. I'm going to jump back to what you were saying about the show too, because I just feel like that point that you mentioned with it doesn't it work that way across the areas of our life, though? We don't have to be one thing. We're not confined to this little space. And I think we try to, or people sometimes throw that on us. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to call out because that really stood out. It's like, yes, you don't have to be this parent, this in your work, this in your, you know,
I'm,
anywhere in your life.
I'm telling you, when I saw that
Yeah,
show, I was like,
yeah,
I'm mad that they put, I mean, I understand they put these scenarios in front of a child because it
right.
does happen. And so, like, I
Yeah.
always think about, am I too gentle with my child or am I too strict on her? But then,
Yeah.
and with me, I want to express to her that education is very, very important, because in the world
Yeah.
that we're in, we have to fight 10 times harder than, no offense to any other race, and I'm not being biased or anything, but other races don't have to fend for that. When the term racism has first started coming out, I think, with the Black Lives Matters came out and all of that stuff had happened, I
Mhm.
feel like I had a voice where I spoke about, I said, hey, you don't even know what I go through. You don't. You don't know at all what I go through in a day-to-day basis to see how I'm trying to be successful in my own mind or in my head or for other people. And so when I started expressing it about it a little bit on social media, they was like, wow, Erica, I didn't know you went through that. I was like, because you never asked. You don't have to, you can walk out and be like, going to pick up the newspaper and I'm okay. You don't have to worry about the what if this person don't like me for my hair, or what if this person don't like me for the color of my skin. You don't have to worry about that. Although me on the other hand, I have to keep positions and everything protected, you know? And that's where I feel like we shouldn't have to work so much to have that life balance, you know?
Yeah, and I still have your question about the harmony in my
Uh-oh.
mind. I want to get to that. But yeah, so what it just makes me think about the community, and I know we'll talk about this more, but my harmonious mom community is what I'm focused on now, and exactly what you're talking about is creating that safe space for diverse moms. And even when you're talking about the show, it's like, well, that's why having exposure to, oh, like this is how this person did that. This is how this non-judgmental
Mm-hmm.
exposure in a safe place of ideas, perspective, ways of doing things. Love all of the, information available
Mm-hmm.
on the internet these days, but recognizing that sometimes the baseline of where you're starting with information, like maybe that mom who plays sports with your son or your daughter isn't the same perspective. Maybe they don't have the same outlook. They don't have the same challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but from their background, all of these things. And so to have to explain so much about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build, you're a working mom, maybe they aren't. Like, it's so much context to have to try and fill
Mm-hmm.
in. So really trying to create this space where, okay, like we're all, looking at things as, we're driven, we have what it takes, we're building something, and want to be there to support, lift one another, to
Mm-hmm.
collaborate. So just starting with that baseline. But I know digressed. I do want to come back to your question
No,
about
you're
the harmony
fine. You're
because,
doing great. You're
yeah,
doing
what
great
makes
because
me
it
think,
has to, it's been on my heart and it has to get talked about, you know?
yeah,
And some of these things,
absolutely.
some of these things people, I've had a previous guest, her name is Dr. Elizabeth, and we touched on about a little bit about racism and bias for Black women.
Yeah,
And I'm so
yeah,
glad that this is opening doors. I've prayed about this. I'm so glad that this is opening doors because not only for Dr. Elizabeth that I've spoke about this, I've spoken this to another guest, Annie, um, and it's continuing to open my eyes that they see it, they hear it, and they understand it because not everybody sees it, hears it, and understand it. So I'm glad that we're diving into this a little bit more and a little bit deeper. I mean, who knows how long this podcast is going to be for today? I don't care because I am
yeah,
enjoying this conversation, but it has to get talked about. And if I can
yeah.
spread that a little bit more with each guest of mine, I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the way that you phrase that because it's true. We should be making more time and more space to dive into these topics. So when it comes up, embrace the opportunity to talk on it. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that. And it made me
Welcome.
think about when you're talking about balance and harmony. I do feel like balance is one of those words that becomes overutilized, and therefore it's kind of like diminishing value in one way of what it means, and
Mm-hmm.
also um, I saw it becoming this pressure to people. So like the way that you describe it, like you come in, oh yeah, this is gonna be balanced, this is great, and then you realize like, wait a minute, the balance isn't there. You almost think you're doing something wrong by it
Mm-hmm.
not being balanced in these settings where they're like, oh, work life balance. And you're like, well, I don't feel balanced.
Right. You
I
don't feel
work
bad.
life balance. And they're like, wait, the balance isn't
You're
there.
looking for that
Yeah,
balance at work. And then it's like, when you're not giving me that balance at
yeah,
work, how can that infused into my life? And it's like, I'm so tired of hearing work life balance. It's just, it's a word I
yeah,
feel that needs to be deleted out of a dictionary. Work life balance, delete, just delete it out of the dictionary because there isn't a work life balance. It's more of you're
yeah,
trying to put two things together that is just not working. It's not working.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
frustrating.
kind of, yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of how organically I started using more work-life harmony to
Mhm.
describe things with my clients because I didn't want that unnecessary weight that work-life balance was adding. I
Mhm.
also, in my mind, think of work-life balance as a scale where technically, how much can you load a scale on either side? You can keep loading and loading it up. And I feel like for so many of my clients, they do so much and
Mhm.
aren't acknowledging all that they do already. So that didn't feel right to me. What made more sense was to think of life as this 100% graph pie,
Mhm.
or however you think of it. And like, how many slices can you have in a pie? You can only have 100%. So if you
Mhm.
have 80% in your life and 80% in your work and 80% that you're trying to do to manage your finances and all, you're gonna look at the pie and say, wait a minute, there's not enough pieces. And
It's
that's
not
the
enough
work that we do.
pieces. And
It's not enough pieces.
that's the thing. That's a key thing, because when there's not enough pieces in that work-life balance, one of the things I would say is my daughter has made me realize, I was like, I don't have a work-life balance. And the way that she made me
Mm-hmm.
realize it was, one day I was getting off of work and she said, Mommy, I miss you. And I said, Oh, sweetie, I'm right here. And she was like, I guess, like, you're not hearing me, Mom? No, my daughter was like, You're not hearing me. And I was like, Okay, let me ask it again. And I said, Well, why you miss Mommy? And she was like, Because you work too much. And I said, Huh? And she said, Yeah, you work too much. And I said, Well, Mommy has to work in order to get bills paid. If I don't work, there's no bills paid, and then there's no roof over the head. So you have to understand that Mommy sometimes is tired and I have to work. She's like, Okay, Mommy, I just wish you would just spend a little bit more time with me. And I said, Okay, I'll make you a deal. I said, Every weekend we'll try to have a movie night, or, I'm going to try my best to like read a book with you, or we'll dance it out like we normally do throughout the week, and we'll just have a good weekend. And she's like, Okay, that's perfect. And I was like, How does a 7-year-old tell a 35-year-old, you're pretty much saying, like, you're putting your work in front of me and you need to put me in front of your work. So now I have been saying, Look here, work, 6:30, it's the cut time.
Look at you. Look,
I'm not doing no overtime. I'm not, doing all of this, because I am initially tired at the end of the day. And it's not
hold your
fair to her.
boundary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair to her.
Yeah.
And so,
Thank you for sharing that because,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. I'm sharing it because it's an eye opener for other people to understand that the phrase that we go back to, the work life balance, is not real. It needs to be deleted. So,
But I think that it's so important, and I appreciate you sharing that because even though you, Erica, 35-year-old woman, has all of this like rational material in your head, like I need to pay the bills, like I need to work, like this needs to
mm-hmm,
happen. That heart space that your daughter is saying, like, hey, but this is what I need, and good for you to raise a daughter who is open and comfortable and advocates for her and that self enough to
mm-hmm,
say, hey, my needs are this.
mm-hmm,
But the thing is like for women in business and the people I work with, it doesn't hurt less. It doesn't take the dagger like, oh my gosh, you're a certain way. And so
mm-hmm,
it's making me think of a client I had worked with who like in a similar position, like I can't be in all the places, all that, like how do I show up more for them and also show up more in my business. And one thing she did was her child was around the same age and she had her son was 8 and she had these like client packages that she would like drop off and like, oh, like, hey, checking in with her clients and drop off
mm-hmm,
something small. um and he helped her. She had never, like, we had talked about it and it was just like, oh, isn't he old enough now that like that would be fun for him to like sit down and be creative and roll up
oh,
his
that's
sleeves and
cool.
be involved in what you're doing. So when she went, and instead of, it was usually this like, keep him in the car and like, here's your toy and
Mm-hmm,
dragging him along to all the clients, and he's asking when they can be done and go home. And instead, because he was involved in the process of making these, or he understood, hey, these are for the families I help. Like, I'm going to go drop these off. We'll meet.
Mm-hmm.
He was excited, going along, tagging along with her. And when she showed up at one of the family's houses, she was in real estate, by the way. And so she showed
Mm-hmm.
up, and the family had moved into their home. They
Mm-hmm.
had a little 8-year-old boy who they moved to the house, and it was his first time ever having his own room. So he was so excited. And when this little boy showed up with his mom to drop this off for them, he's, oh my gosh, like you're like a new friend. He
It's a
wanted to
new
show
friend.
him his new
Oh.
room, his first time having his own room. He showed the little boy his room. He's all excited. And so
Mm-hmm.
now for her son to know this is what you do, those nights when you're working, that time that you spend, you're helping give a family this new space. You're helping put that little boy in his own
Mm-hmm.
room for this time. Like their awareness expands not only of what you do and the sacrifice of yes, some less time together, helps you advocate for other people and do different things for others in a
Mm-hmm.
certain way, but also their concept of what work is changes. And instead of it being this thing that drags you away from your family, it
Mm-hmm.
now becomes like investing in yourself, in your future, in others, and really shapes their identity around how they think about work and their future selves pouring into the
Right.
world. It just kind of like sets the
It's making
foundation
them
up
feel
differently.
included. And I can see where the 8-year-old was like, now I
Yeah.
can see from my mommy's eyes what she does all day, but now I'm included and this is fun. This is fun for me rather than just sitting in the car, be
Changes
right
everything.
back, things like that, And my daughter
Changes
likes to draw
everything.
a lot. So I told her, I said, you're going in,
Mm.
when you get in high school, that drawing that you made at 7, I said, you're going to go far. I don't know what
Yeah.
she's going to be when she grows up and how, but I want to manifest into her life. You could be whatever you want to be.
Mm.
And when I see her drawings, I'm
Yeah.
like, you're so cool at drawing. Just keep that fresh mind that you are cool at drawing. And she's
Yeah.
actually
And I had,
no, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
She's
No, you're in the
actually
middle of it. I
no,
want
no,
to
no.
hear.
She's actually in the process of, she likes seeing me like do the process of a podcast or like even the clothing thing. She
Mm.
actually picks out. My daughter is so,
I love.
I love her. She picks out exactly, like if I say, hey, Ari, what design do you think is best for mommy to try? Well, I really don't like this color. Let's try a pink or a purple. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I try it
I
and
love
then
it.
people like it. And I said, that's not coming from me. I didn't make this design. My daughter did. So it's kind of cool where just
Yeah. Yeah.
elevating that with a child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree more.
And so what I claim for you and your child is that enjoy this time with being in second, like not second, 2-year old. I don't know why I said second grade because I'm thinking second grade in my head. But as a 2-year
Mm-hmm.
old,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, she's still talking and walking, but I can't wait for her to be in school. And now to see it comes into a blink of an eye, and now she's in school. Now I'm like, I want you home with me all the time. And I just want to tell you,
Yeah.
enjoy this time. Enjoy it as much as you can.
Yeah.
I took a lot of pictures, and so I'm gonna start doing like a little book for her, between like her pre-K,
Yeah.
kindergarten, first and second, so she could see how she's changed. So that's something that I'm gonna do with her.
I'm sorry. I think the audio is lagging a little,
Oh,
but
can you hear me?
yes. Okay, I hear you now.
Okay, you
Yes.
can hear me now.
Sorry, I saw your lips moving a minute ago. I couldn't hear
I don't
anything.
know. It's being weird. So I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about, let's get on the practical side of things because I know our listeners are probably wondering and saying this is a great podcast to listen to. Um, but how do you actually do it? Like, what are your morning and evening routines? What do you like to do to block out? I know you said about the coffee in reference to time blocking and having that flexibility for yourself. But yeah, let's get into it. Like the morning, evening routines, the time blocking, even the boundaries that you might set. What is a non-negotiable you might have?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, as like a high level overview, I think one of the things I had mentioned is setting your future self up for success. So, those like pain point things that you don't want to deal with. And I always think of that in my business is like, what are those things I can do now to make time
Mm-hmm.
easy? Because we always think like, oh, I can get to that in the future, that kind of a thing. When you're busiest in your business is when you won't have the time to deal with
Mm-hmm.
the administrative pain points or like those things that you could be doing. So more technically, I've gotten to a point in my schedule where, and this was like, it felt like a big move for me to claim back time in this way. But I
Mm-hmm.
actually block off certain periods of time and take a whole day that's meetingless now. And so it's been such a change to be able to dive deep into thinking about social media, thinking about, structuring talks, workshops, designing content, like pouring myself deep into that space. And I think that's the thing for us as parents, like you become so used to having your attention pulled away from what you're doing and working
Mm-hmm.
with like snippets of that you adjust to just being in that mindset. So for me, it was really nice to just be able to reclaim, like, no, Monday I'm going to protect. That is my space to dive deep and go there. And then
Mm-hmm.
also restructuring my calendar so that I have certain days open for client meetings, for client engagements, certain
Mm-hmm.
days where I go more deep into networking and making new connections and building those relationships and that kind of a thing. So really giving more of an overview of the week and what that looks like and just kind of being intentional about going a mile, inch wide and a mile deep into
Mm-hmm.
whatever I'm doing to really be intentional. And then when you're talking about like evening structure, I feel like for us within business, like you're always thinking about your business. So I actually do just like let myself go there and I
Mm-hmm.
carve out, are there little things in the evening that make sense? Maybe it's like, designing some social media content. Maybe it's doing follow ups. Maybe like whatever it is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of a question always makes me think about my own energy levels, my own like what works for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that enough people really try to focus on that. They think about like the 5 a.m. club and like a book or resource like that and try to squeeze themselves to fit into somebody else's box and identity and what works for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I always think of starting with your own gifts and your own like zone of genius and making things work around that. So when you get to the point of the question where you're talking about boundaries and holding and pushing
Mm-hmm.
back and things like that, I feel like one big thing for me is I'm compassionate, I'm empathetic. Like I am always going to be thinking, like people first. And so
Mm-hmm.
knowing that about myself, really protecting my energy, so I set boundaries and communicate boundaries up front. If I'm telling people, hey, you know what, past 6 p.m., expect to hear from me next day. Well, the thing it does for me is it restructures the thought to help me think about somebody else's harmony first. If somebody emailed me at 8 p.m. and I've already told them, past this time, expect to hear from me next day. Well, now they're not checking their phone every hour, thinking like,
Right.
oh, like when is she gonna get back to me now? Does she look in the evenings? Like they have no idea. And now it's actually protecting their space to their head space so that they can move. Oh yeah, she'll probably get to me tomorrow. That's what she said
Tomorrow.
anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're on the same page. It just frees up this kind of flow in your work schedule so that you've communicated the boundaries up front and you leave that space so that they can honor and respect your boundaries more easily.
And I like that. It does help because when we were communicating, I was like, oh, this is new. This is different. I don't have to like check everything often so much. Just wait until tomorrow and just wait for the next day. It's going to be okay. And so for me, I was like, that's a boundary I need to create for my friends. Like, hey, my phone's on do not disturb and I don't want to be disturbed. Okay? It's a boundary that just needs to happen. If you don't hear from me, it's okay. I'm alive. It's just I want to get my sleep and it's a boundary that I'm saying do not disturb on my phone. And by the way, on an iPhone, you can see it. It says do not disturb. So,
Wow.
there you go. And I don't really have
Yeah.
too many non-negotiables. I know self-care is a non-negotiable for me where I just kind of need um that time, especially when you get off of work. My spouse tells everyone, "Hey, she just got off of work. Give her about an hour or so. She needs that. She's been talking to people all day. Let her, before you start saying, hey, I can't get this to work. Hey, I need this fixed. Hey, Erica, can you do this? Hey, Erica, can you fix my internet? Give her a minute. She's just been off." And so he's kind of stepped in and kind of created that boundary for me where he's like, let her be her for just a second before you're saying, has anybody cooked dinner? Where I can't get this channel to come on. I need this help for the internet. And it comes so fast at me to the point where I'm like, hey, like I don't want to scream at nobody, but I'm like, hey, give me a second. I'm doing something right now. You can't cut me off from doing something
Yeah.
and on your time.
Yeah.
Let me finish what I'm finishing. And then I think a lot of people feel like they can come to Erica and just say, Erica can do it. And not say, oh, maybe Erica's in the middle of doing something. Give her a second, or I'm going to hit her up in a minute. And so that's kind of like a boundary that I'm creating right now, where I'm just like, give me a second. Because if I don't get that minute to myself and I feel like everybody's coming at me, Erica, can you fix my resume? Erica, can you fix this tech issue? Erica, can you fix this channel? It just becomes too overwhelming for me. And then I'm like, I lash out. And then I don't want to be like that. I'm like, just give me a second. Let me help you on my own terms. But that's because I'm the
What
person
that?
where, can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. That comes with a lot of that you have to set that boundary. Um, but I wanted to go into a
Yeah.
couple more things before we wrap up our podcast today.
Okay.
Um, and I know life happens. I know kids get sick. I know launches don't go as planned.
Mhm.
For sure, I know launches don't go as planned.
Mhm.
But can you
Yes.
share maybe something recent this week where you felt like it was chaotic and how you found your way back to that harmony?
Yes. For me, especially, at the 2-year-old phase, the sickness. With my son being sick, like getting sick, getting
Mhm.
the germs, and of course, and the multiple days. So there was a time, this was like maybe like a week ago, but he got a
Mhm.
flu, and he's fine, but he had 3 days in a row with this little fever and had to stay home for daycare. We have him limited time in daycare, and so it's just when you get that thrown at you and everything needs to be redesigned and
Mhm.
rescheduled, and you need to figure out how to play with your time. And often will tell my clients too, like when you're looking at your schedule, can you pull out one top priority per day and like have your energy on that thing so that when the sick day happens, even if I clear out my schedule of everything else and I do this one thing while they're napping,
Mhm.
I would have had, okay, that's a successful day in my mind. And so that's definitely one thing I try to focus in on is like, if the schedule gets wiped out clean, what's the one thing? And I know it's tough to do, but just thinking of it that way to give yourself space for those other things that can get pushed out if they need to, realistically.
Yeah.
And what you were saying before, though, was also making me think about the boundaries with so many people now who work from home. I work from home, and who have their own businesses. You don't have that separation even with your own family. And so you really need to create the boundary when your child's coming in, when, hey, this is still mommy's work time. And so even that like physical separation, or if you can, or what that
Mhm.
looks like for you to close the door on your work time, your work mindset, I had a client who at the end of her work day, she made sure to take a shower or to go for a swim or just like rinse off that, like what she was carrying from the work day and transition into the rest. Like now she's family mode. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you need to do to be intentional about shifting from spaces and mind spaces to give
Mm-hmm.
yourself that opportunity to do it so that you can show up more present where you are.
Yeah, and that's something where I think where we went back earlier about being intentional about your space and how it harmonized with everything with that work-life balance where you at the end of the day you kind of just want to be rinse everything off and just be done and just be in that mommy mode for the rest of the day. Sometimes work can be
Mm,
so chaotic to the point where it's work 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 so much all the time, then you bring it home and then it's like something your child or your significant other may have done, and it like snaps and then you're just like snapping where it's not creating that energy or that rhythm um that speaks space, like face value to that. um
mm.
what is something you've let go of? What's the biggest difference in your peace of mind?
Ooh, um,
Is it another
let go
stumble
of, that's
question
the
that I've
biggest
done?
phase of the, it's just like I really want to honor the question for all that's there because it's such a good question. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's this control. Like I don't want to say the same thing again, but it really is that wound grip on having a sense of control. And it's connected to the idea for me of being realistic. One thing that's happened to me is instead of the, 8 things I need to do, like major stuff all in one day, I look
Mm-hmm.
at that now and like, okay, realistically, where is the brain space? Where's the reflection time? When is the am I giving myself enough time to really derive the most out
Mm-hmm.
of the things that I'm doing? And sometimes cutting your schedule or like what's in your book in half, if you can, and you might have to get really creative to do that, is
Mm-hmm.
worth it because I'm able to deepen the impact that the things I'm doing has in the first place. So it's like more valuable, more intentional. But that was not easy for me to just like,
To
how
let
can you
that
have
go.
your schedule? How can you have the things you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to let it go. You feel like you're giving up something, but not gripping so tightly, like really being creative with what you can create. And it might be different than what you initially thought.
And I know control is something that it's very hard to let go, and especially when you are set in a set schedule all the time, and trying to let that
Mm.
go can be difficult. So, before we wrap up, can you share your top three quick tips for any mompreneur just trying to find her rhythm right now?
Mhm. So one thing is honor yourself. Your, like I was saying, your gifts, who you really are. I use an assessment tool with my clients so they can really gain like clarity and perspective on what you're bringing to the table so that you can better identify maybe gaps, identify opportunities to better collaborate with
Mm-hmm.
like spaces where you have to fill in gaps. We all have them. So just like being intentional about that. Um, that would be one thing. Finding opportunities to optimize and maximize your time, like the story I was sharing about the mom, bringing her kid along and incorporating them. I
Mm-hmm.
think that for a lot of my clients, as their children get older, they have a heart like it's your little baby, right? You were saying, how
Mm-hmm.
is she this old already? I want her home. I want it's your little baby. And so as they get older, but like, can they be doing it more? Can they be more? Can you bring them along to do more to help out and incorporate them and shape what
Mm-hmm.
their vision is of work? And so, kind of taking a step back, maybe even on an annual basis, and saying like, okay, what are the new things? How can we play with this to
Mm-hmm.
also help you alleviate what's on your schedule and maximize your time? Hopefully. So that would be the other thing. And then lastly, I would say support, just this idea of support and collaboration. For me as a mom, my world got just expanded of what I think of as a support and collaboration. I needed it in a different
Mm-hmm.
way than I had ever thought of before. So whatever it is for you, finding support, being creative, taking somebody up on the, they want to take your daughter out, an aunt or an uncle wants to take your kids for an afternoon. And like, maybe you always default to saying no, but thinking like, oh, you know what? Like, actually, maybe I could use that in your business. Maybe collaborating creatively, being on someone's newsletter, doing a newsletter swap,
Mhm.
being on someone's podcast. Like these kinds of things that now you have, like, now we have each other in our communities. If you're doing something, I want to support it because we've had these opportunities. And so just
Mhm.
thinking about expanding your world in those ways.
I like those three things that you stated because some of my three things I would share would be protecting your energy and just protecting your time. That's not often spoke upon about protecting your peace and or even just giving yourself some grace, because it's difficult. It's a transition. Some parents just don't know how to be a parent. There's no book in being a parent. So I would say having to give yourself some grace and just within this season keep the priorities in um, would be the three things for me. Just reminding myself that harmony isn't something that arrives on time. It's something that you can create and nurture and seek an adventure in. And over time, protecting that peace within that harmony for me, would that be? And those are my three things to wrap up. But Amy, I want to thank you so much for
All
being
right.
here and sharing your heart. What is the best place where people can connect with you online?
Yes. So my website is harmoniousparent.com. I'm most active on LinkedIn, getting to be more active on Instagram, but LinkedIn, it's just my name, Amy Pierre Russo. And on Instagram, it's coaching with Amy. But I also want to make sure that your audience has access to my work life harmony audit. So I will make
Hmm.
sure that give you a link to that so that they can just have
Perfect.
access to just kind of do an overview and get some ideas.
That is awesome. I'm so excited for everyone to hear this. Well, you guys, my listeners, my boss moms, my friends, anyone that's listening to this, until next time, keep your dreams and chasing those dreams, loving your people well, and building a life that feels good on the inside as well it does on the outside. You are doing a fabulous job as a mama, Amy. Just want to say that first and foremost. And to all the other moms, you are doing an amazing job yourself. Again, give yourself some grace, protect your peace in this season that you're going through. Until next time, bye, guys.